The Browns, Molly. When I think about the pressure to get quarterback right, I think about what the recourse for the organization is if you don't. And to me, Mike Tomlin ain't going nowhere. If the Pittsburgh Steelers didn't decide to make a move after losing 5 straight games and having their 5th straight postseason being one and done, it ain't going to happen no time soon in terms of moving on from Mike Tomlin. So I think it's the Cleveland Browns because you're talking about Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski being on the wrong side of the worst trade in NFL history. It was so bad that the best player that they've had in their franchise's history over the last quarter century said he didn't want to be there. And the only way they got him to stay is by paying him $40 million a year. So when you look at the Cleveland Browns and what their quarterback situation has been post Baker Mayfield, that team has had the worst passer rating in the NFL during that 3-season span, the absolute worst. They haven't had a first-round draft pick since 2021. So it is on Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski to get this right. They have to be the more desperate of the AFC North teams that we just mentioned in terms of finding a signal caller.
Go ahead, Shannon.
Well, considering Cleveland hadn't found a signal, considering they haven't found a signal caller maybe since Otto Graham or Bernie Kosar, I don't feel very confident they're going to do it not catch it. They hadn't had a quarterback basically since you and I was probably like 6 or 7 years of age. With that being said, I agree with you, and this is why. Look, I believe Myles Garrett played this because Myles Garrett didn't have any more guaranteed money, can't he? So you know what I'm going to do? I don't know if I want to be here with ESPN for the simple fact I just don't really know if they're going in the right direction. So, you know, hey, we going to see what happens, Stephen A. I don't know what's going to happen. So I believe that was the play that Myles. I believe, honestly, guys, that was the play. But Canty, I agree with you because here's the thing. Lamar Jackson is going to be in Baltimore for at least another 7 to 10 years. Joe Burrow is going to be there. Those are the teams that you're going to have to unseat. Look, Pittsburgh is Pittsburgh. But Cleveland, if you want to ever be taken serious, when you're more than an afterthought, you're going to have to find a quarterback. You have to. They thought they had one with Deshaun, but for whatever reason, be it injuries, be it mental, I don't know, but that didn't work. And it hadn't worked since Bernie Kosar. Let's be real. Go back and look at it. They probably had 20 starting quarterbacks, and none of them has played well more than a year. Derek Anderson had that one good year with Braylon Edwards, and after that, he stepped off a cliff. And so for the most part, they've got to find a quarterback, but I'm under no illusion that is going to happen considering they haven't had one in 40 years.
Well, listen, I get where y'all are coming from, and I don't disagree with y'all about the Cleveland Browns, but I think that the Steelers situation is just as cumbersome, to say the least. We've got a guy, Mike Tomlin, who we all appreciate. We recognize him to be a damn good coach, obviously a high-end motivator. We know what he brings to the table. He's never had a losing record in his 18 years in Pittsburgh. We get that, fellas, right? But the flip side to it is, and put these guys up on the screen so I can see them while I'm talking, please, because I want to say this, and I want to see their reaction as well. Mike Tomlin won a Super Bowl, in 2008. They lost in 2010. Ain't been back to the Super Bowl since. Fine, no problem. But to not having won a Super Bowl since 2016, to having 5 straight years of being one and done, and it's been 9 years since you won a playoff game. These are the Steelers we're talking about here, one of the most storied franchises in NFL history. We love Mike Tomlin. We don't want to see him go anywhere. Y'all know better than me how difficult it is to have a record that never falls below 500 over the course of 18 years. That is an accomplishment. But in the end, really, we also have to debate what level of mediocrity we want to embrace. Because when you're middle of the road, you can't really get a high-end draft pick because you didn't stick up the joint, right? And obviously you ain't winning championships. So what difference does it make? That's ultimately how people are going to look at it. When you bring up Cleveland, CC and Shay, here's my thing. They sort of have a reason to get away with it because we all know that was Jimmy Haslam that made the call. When you given a quarterback, particularly with the kind of troubles or field troubles that Deshaun Watson found himself in at that particular moment in time, but then he's on the market and he gets $230 million guaranteed, the highest at the time for anybody in history. Literally, He got $230 million every year. Every dime of his contract was guaranteed. That's unheard of in the National Football League, but it happened with him. That's why Lamar Jackson tried to hold out. That's why Kyler Murray ended up getting the 189 or so that he got. That's why others came up to fray. That's why Dak Prescott ultimately got $60 million. You know, all of this stuff. It started with Deshaun Watson's contract. We know that wasn't Berry. We know that was Jimmy Haslam. And so because it's the owner's mistake, I'm saying that sort of like buys a cushion for the Stefanskis and the Berries of the world because of the other pieces around them if the quarterback is the problem. I'm not saying it's a good thing, y'all. I'm just saying I don't see how that's much worse than the Steelers, considering that Jimmy Haslam was the one that made that call.
Well, Stephen A., here's where you're wrong. Although it might have been Jimmy Haslam that signed off on trading for Deshaun Watson and giving him the contract, it wasn't Jimmy Haslam that pushed Baker Mayfield out of the door, a quarterback that had won you a playoff game during his tenure, right? This is the prime example of never messing up your for show for some more. That's exactly what the Cleveland Browns did.
I'm asking, do we know that?
No.
I'm seriously asking, do we know that it was them that pushed
it was reported
Baker Mayfield out the door?
It was reported that Kevin Stefanski wanted to move on from Baker Mayfield. Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
No
that's
problem.
the thing.
Got it.
So,
Got
yeah.
it.
So they moved on from Baker Mayfield. How Baker Mayfield looking now in Tampa?
How'd that work out?
I mean, last 2 years, Baker
better.
Mayfield is sixth
better.
in wins. He's led his team to back-to-back division titles and, oh, by the way, got a playoff win in the mix. So if they had Baker Mayfield now with this current core of players in Cleveland, they'd be in good shape. But they don't. That's why I can't completely absolve the general manager and the head coach.
Absolutely.
And
Guys,
the thing is, Stephen A., you know how this works. When the CEO mess up, it's the workers below him that take the blame. I ain't taking no blame. That's what I pay you for, to take the blame. And what is the standard? We hear Mike Tomlin say all the time, the standard is the standard. Well, in Pittsburgh now, the standard is mediocrity. Because what do we always highlight Mike Tomlin with? He's never had a losing season. That ain't worth a damn. We don't pay you to not have a losing season. We pay you the big bucks to win championships. And they haven't, as you mentioned, Stephen A., haven't won a playoff game since 2016. He's never had a losing season. What is 9-8? What good is that doing me? Bro, come on. That's like kissing your girl through a screen door. That ain't doing nothing. Ain't no lips touching. You don't get to hold no hands. That ain't nothing, Stephen A. I need more from Mike Tomlin. He said, this is what he said. The standard was the standard. So now when we associate standard with Pittsburgh, it's mediocrity. It's a game or two above 500. That
then you agree
is
with
not good enough for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Well, then you agree with me that the situation in Pittsburgh is somewhat as dire as Cleveland.
But Steve, I think the thing is, although, look, the objective is to win, at least they're making the playoffs. Man, Cleveland, they've been staking up. The last 3 to 4 years, Stephen A., you can make a case they're one of the 2 or 3 worst teams. And you look at the collection of talent that they have, they shouldn't be this bad. They should not be.
Mũi tiếp theo nữa này. Mình tiếp tục mình móc. Cứ móc luân phiên từng mũi một là được. Đấy, tiếp tục nhé. Đây mình móc tiếp này. Cứ từng mũi một cho đến hết. Rồi móc tiếp nữa. Móc kín cái hàng này là được. Tiếp tục nha mọi người. Giờ sẽ móc tiếp vào này. Lần lượt từng mũi một. Mũi tiếp theo. Đấy, cứ lần lượt này là được. Tiếp nha mọi người.